Hello, welcome to our continuing devotional through the book of Colossians. We're currently at Colossians chapter 2, and we're looking at verses 6 and 7, which say this: Therefore, as you received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in him, rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith, just as you were taught, abounding in thanksgiving. Christians should keep going and growing in Jesus instead of being spiritually distracted. That's the basic principle being communicated by Paul here. He's saying you started off right. You began to follow Jesus. You received him, as it says there in verse 6. But now that you've received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in him. Keep going in that direction. Don't become distracted by other things. Don't lose your focus upon him, your trust in him. Don't become wayward in any way. One of the great dangers that you've probably noticed in our culture, particularly since the growth of the use of cell phones, is distracted driving. In some ways, as I drive on the highways, it seems to me that's pretty much as dangerous as drunk driving, though I'm not in any way undermining the dangers of drunk driving. But I see people, and I see them weaving, and I see them not paying attention. They're going all over the road. Sometimes they're going too fast. Sometimes they're going too slow. Sometimes they're going through lights. I once got rear-ended by a driver who was texting and totaled my car. Fortunately, we weren't injured. But all of this is they were distracted. Their focus was not where it should be. And the same thing can be true spiritually. We can get distracted when our focus should be on Jesus, knowing him, learning of him, becoming like him, following him. And many things can distract us from Jesus. Sometimes it's false spiritual teachings. We talked about that in our last devotional. Very common for political issues, in political ideologies and candidates and parties to become a distraction from focusing on Jesus. Social justice issues, as important as some of those are, even when they're biblical, can distract us from our focus on Jesus. Moral reform issues, another good thing. None of these are necessarily bad things. Moral reform, a good thing. Social justice, used rightly, is a good thing. Political advocacy can be a good thing. Spiritual teachings can be a good thing, but it can also distract us. And that's why Paul says, listen, you got all these people out there and all these issues out there. And he's speaking to the church of Colossae. He says, listen, as you receive Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in him. Don't become a distracted driver. Don't become distracted in your spiritual walk. That's more perilous even than distracted driving on the highways. Keep your focus on Christ. Walk in him, think about him, follow him, trust him, continue in the same direction without any detours, without any distractions. Maybe a word for many today is just get your focus back on Jesus. There used to be a Beatles song, and it's a really weird song. I'm no way promoting the song, but it did have this line in it that might be applicable to what we're talking about today. That old Beatles song said, "Get back to where you once belonged." And I think that's applicable to what Paul's saying here. You've gotten distracted. Get back to where you once belonged. Focus again on Jesus. And that's why verse 7 talks about being built up in him. We're rooted in Jesus. We're built up in Jesus. Our faith is in Jesus. We were taught about Jesus. And when all of that's true, it says that we will also have thanksgiving. You see, when you're focused on Jesus and not on politics, not on social justice, not on what's going on in the world, not on the economy, when you're not on other adverse teaching, but when you're focused on Jesus, instead of anxiety and fear and anger and bitterness, there's thanksgiving in your heart, which is far healthier for you physically as well as spiritually. So Christians need to keep going, and they need to keep growing in Jesus instead of being spiritually distracted. I hope that's true for you. Have a blessed day.